So let's get right to it. Let me get my glasses because I'm old. All right. The first question, this person, they said they know what they need to do is practice, 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 practice. And with that being said, they had a heart attack about 8 months ago. I'm glad you're doing okay. Um, and they've had a lot of time to recover, but they have not had the focus like they did previously for meditating or connecting. They are wondering if it's all the new medications that they are on, or is it just trauma and recovery that has had such an impact on them? So, I want to say something first about the medications. Since I don't psychically tune into you guys unless we are in a one on one session, I couldn't tell you if it is the medications, but that is quite possible. Having said that, there's a few things here. So, when you go through something as serious as what you did, even when you have felt that you have physically recovered, sometimes your energy really took a hit, okay? And that can be so varied in how long it will take to recover. And I'm not saying that so you think it's daunting, but it's very, very unique to the person. It's very unique to what you went through. And sometimes, I'm sure this felt very serious. It is very serious, but sometimes something doesn't even have to feel like it was that serious, and our energy now needs different things. It needs different healing modalities, it needs recovery, and it's, like I said, it's very, very unique to the person. So let me use this example. I guess it's 2 years ago now, was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that was a hell of a thing. And compared to some people, I really had what I would consider a minor situation, thank goodness. I remember during that time feeling very, very present and very peaceful. There was a few bumps in the roads where I was freaking out. But generally, once I had gotten to the radiation part, I started to feel this extreme presence in my day to day, which I've never, I've gotten there with meditation a few times, but this was amazing how when you're facing something so serious, suddenly all that matters is moment to moment. And it was sort of a beautiful thing and a real shit sandwich, if I could talk. I thought that I was going to have a new lease on life. And while there was beautiful things that came out of it, and I'm definitely not the same person as when I went into it, even though I physically was better and I was rocking and rolling in my life and all that stuff, um, it is probably taken until now for me to really feel energetically better. I lost a lot of interest in my spiritual connection after this was all said and done. And there was nothing bad that happened that caused that. I didn't feel that I was neglected from my spirit team. I knew they were helping me through the whole thing, but for some reason I just wasn't in the mood to talk, to connect, to meditate, and I felt really blah about it, and that went on for a long time. And then eventually I was very upset that I felt that way. I thought, isn't that some shit? I went through all this and now I'm like, whatever. In hindsight, I needed a lot of energetic recovery, and I actually needed to take a step back. And I think I just wanted to charge on with this new lease on life. And, my energy had other plans. So I will say this to you, this is my recommendation. If I could go back, knowing what I know now, I would have simply enjoyed my day to day. I would have asked myself, what do you need today? What would you like to do today? Instead of thinking there's things I'm supposed to be doing, I would have had more massages. I would have done more healing work on myself. Sometimes I would have just sat and stared. I think that is what I needed. But generally the role is to practice your psychic abilities and to have some forward momentum with all of this. The truth is sometimes what we need is rest and recovery and enjoying, like I said, our day to day. That I know I'm simplifying something, but if I could go back, I think I wasn't allowing just a daily joy, which in itself is very spiritual. There is no higher vibration than joy. And I could have just enjoyed the people around me, my company, my healing, and not felt that there were certain things I needed to do, because the truth was it was a slow process for my creativity and my spiritual connection to sort of come back to me, but it came back when it was time for it to come back instead of me forcing it. So I'm going to give you the opposite advice that I would usually tell you: practice and practice and practice. It's not time for that right now. You're not feeling that right now. It is time to ask your body energetically and physically what it needs, and to focus on healing. And also, this may be a good time to mix up what you've been doing, because I have a feeling you've probably been beating the same drum for a while. It's time to beat a new one. It's time to do some different things. And slowly, this lack of energy and lack of focus will lift, and you will start to feel interested in things again. But you really have to not put a time limit on it. Just enjoy yourself and take care of yourself in the meantime, and it is okay to rest. I hope this helps. Okay, sorry, you can see the ring light in my glasses. I'm sure that's distracting. The next question, and I'm going to shorten some of these. People are very detailed, which I appreciate, but for the point of the video, I'm going to shorten these. This person is doing my energy clearings and healing videos. It says it helps them a lot in terms of feeling better, which is great. They were wondering if I had any tips or tricks for healing physical symptoms as well, for example, eczema. They try to do energy clearings and they listen to healing frequencies. They use ointments and shadow work for thought patterns, but it doesn't really seem to help. And they're wondering what you often feel heals clients on a physical level, and if there are certain techniques that would help people on a physical level. Okay. Oh, and then they ask, is energy work sometimes not enough? Why is it so difficult for people to heal their symptoms? So, good question. There's a few things. Healing work is never in vain, ever, ever. The issue with healing work is that sometimes it's not super obvious in the moment, okay? It's almost like brushing your teeth and combing your hair. It leads to healthy gums and healthy teeth and healthy hair, but not on day 1, not even on day 10. It's sort of a continual thing. And then you notice, geez, generally I feel very well. I feel good. I feel like I get over sicknesses quick, that sort of thing, okay? There's not a lot of quick proof with the healing modalities. Not that that can't happen, but it's more so, it's affecting things a lot of times at a level we can't see or sense right away. So that's the first thing. Don't ever think it's a bad thing to do. So everything is energy. That is true. However, because you are in the 3D and you have a physical body, it starts to get a little complicated. So we have all these different layers of our energy, and it can get very interesting. I'm sorry, my blood sugar is low today. It can get very interesting, and it can get very complicated, and you can go very deep into your healing at all these different levels. You don't have to do that unless you want to do that, but my point of saying that is it's not sometimes as simple as what we're doing with like listening to healing music, even though that's very beautiful. Since you have a physical body, what it's going to need is going to vary greatly. So this is where you're going to hear this 500 times. Strengthening your psychic abilities is incredibly important. Strengthening your intuition is incredibly important. This is because your guides will be able to tell you what you need. So in this situation, even though you're doing wonderful things, did you say to your guides, what do I need? And they might say, yes, listen to healing frequencies, but also do X, Y, and Z. Okay. And a lot of times people are sort of treating themselves, which is fine, but it really isn't specific to your needs. Okay. Now, I will say with eczema, and this is not medical advice, but eczema a lot of times is coming from within. Your body does not like something, okay? So ointments, they can help a little bit, but they're not getting to the root of what's going on. And for example, I get eczema also, and when I asked my spirit guides why, they said it was because of gluten and dairy. So I cut out about 80% of gluten and dairy. I can't give up all my cheese. And my eczema is incredibly improved. Okay. So that's me. That's where you have to look at yourself as a whole. So if something isn't working, that's where you need to investigate a little further. Because if it was as easy as, well, bring in healing light and listen to this healing music, I mean, that would be amazing. But the thing is, we are very complicated individuals. We have many energy channels, chakras, we have our physical body, our energy body. And sometimes what is needed is, it seems a little less divine, a little less magical. Again, I don't want to knock those things. Those things are powerful, very powerful, and very helpful. But if you're doing all that and still your body doesn't like the detergent you're using, you're just undoing all that healing energy. So again, to bring it back to me, my breast cancer, maybe at another time I'll get into why that breast cancer happened, but for now, let's say that it was an old wound, okay? And a wound I didn't know was there, and I've done a lot of healing work, okay? But I didn't know it was there, and I didn't know what was required to heal it, so I didn't focus on it, and eventually I got breast cancer. And I'm not saying that's why everyone's happens, I'm just talking about myself. Once I knew it was there, and once I was told why it had happened, my guides helped me surround the tumor and wall it off so it wouldn't go anywhere. So, I still, though, had to go through the very human process of having a lumpectomy and having radiation. And also, my guides during that whole time, they wanted me to fill my energy with healing light daily because a lot was changing, a lot was going on. So I needed to do the more mundane things because I have a physical body. And then I also needed to do things to heal my energy body. So again, keep that in mind. You have to treat all layers of yourself. And that is why sometimes the healing work that you're doing isn't working because more's required. Question: are there a certain amount of days when the light is open for a soul to cross over after death? Does it close after those days? They've read different beliefs on this, but would like my input. So from what I understand, and this is not what I read, this is what my guides have taught me, the answer is there's not a certain amount of days. It's much more complicated than that. And this becomes very varied by the person that's passing away. And what they don't tell you is you can go into the light and you can come back over. You do not have to stay in the light, which in the light, let's say those are higher levels, higher dimensions, okay? You don't have to necessarily be in those. Some people like to be earthbound and they do have a choice to come back to earth or stay on earth. You also have people who, there's an unfinished business and they're staying around until they feel comfortable crossing over. Okay, so it's not like if you miss your window, you're screwed. From what I understand, you have many opportunities. It just depends on what's going on. The other thing too is, from my understanding, there's many layers of us. You could even say many levels of us as a person, as a soul, as a spirit. And sometimes when you pass, the higher levels of you cross right over, and then sometimes lower levels remain until they can integrate with the higher levels. And that's, why you get ghosts and things of that sort. The fears of you, the resentments, the part that maybe didn't grow during life might stay earthbound. And then, it would be so incredibly varied as to how that or if that soul is able to integrate in the higher with the higher levels that have crossed over. You even have my grandfather crossed over, and then he actually came back, and she doesn't know this, but stayed with my grandmother for a while because he was worried about her. He wanted to make sure that she was going to be okay. So he had still gone into the light, but had made a choice to hang around longer. So it's a lot more complicated than it's made to be, but I mean that in the best way. Maybe complicated is not the word. Maybe interesting is a better word. But from what I understand, you don't have 72 hours and you better get your ass in the light or you're screwed. I do not think that's how it works. I have not experienced that in any way, so I don't think that's something you have to worry about. This person also asked me a question that I told him you could find. I did a longer video about this a few years ago, but I'm just gonna answer quickly here. And if you want to know more details, go to YouTube. I have like 30 some videos on there, and they're full of information, great information. They wondered about the veil feeling thinner in October, and what I thought about that. And so really the reason the veil feels thinner is because of us. We have done that, okay? So if you imagine that, where your energy goes, it pulls certain energy towards you, okay? So if you imagine most of the world, or a good chunk of it, in October is celebrating Halloween or the different sort of holidays across the world where there's, we celebrate spirits or we get scared of spirits, and we're dressing up and trick or treating and all the things we do in October, decorate. What you're doing is that since we're doing that on such a big scale, so many people, you're pulling those spirits towards you. You're pulling those like vibrational things towards you. So it actually does create a, spookier vibe. It is something in the air. We've always felt it. I've always felt it since I was a kid, this spooky feeling. And yeah, we are really the ones doing that. And you could do it anytime. If we all as a collective decided in June we're going to treat June like Halloween, well, over time we would start to pull that energy closer, and it would drop the veil a little bit. But we're sort of welcoming in spirits, and I love it. And you also have to be really careful with it. And even though I don't put hard and fast rules on things, I am a little more cautious in my home now because my home has a very high vibration. And I love Halloween, of course. If anyone's been following me for any amount of time, they know I love Halloween, and I always have. And I like scaring myself a little bit. One year, and I'm going to keep this very short so I don't do it again. One year, I was making too many scary movies for YouTube, and I was really freaking myself out, and I broke the energy in my home. Without going into detail, my home became a haunted house. And I learned the very hard lesson that you have to be careful welcome it in certain things because you can really cause a shitstorm. And it took me quite a while and a lot of work and a lot of magic to get my home back to its happy, high vibrational self where I wasn't being scared shitless every time I walked into a room. I say it laughing now, but at the time it was real messed up. But, we live and we learn, and now I understand better so I can help teach people. So watch scary movies, enjoy Halloween, that's what it's for. But, maybe do some extra clearings, and after you watch kind of nasty movies, get them off your energy and that sort of thing. Yeah, happy Halloween, babes.